Now, live with breaking news, this is ABC 27 News at noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Crummell. One Lebanon police officer is dead. 2 others are wounded after a gunman opened fire on them yesterday in Lebanon. We are now learning more about the officer killed, the ones who were hurt, and the gunman. ABC 27 covering it all for you this afternoon. Our Taylor Toshef begins our live team coverage. She is in Lebanon this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Taylor.
Good afternoon, James. Yeah, we now know a lot more about how this happened, the events that led up to the shooting that killed 40-year veteran of the force, Lieutenant William Lebo, who was scheduled to retire next month. The Lebanon County District Attorney walked us through how all of this unfolded. She says 34-year-old Travis Shaud broke into a family member's home on the 1100 block of Forest Street. When that family member came home, they saw Shaud and right away called police. When officers tried to go into the home, Shaud immediately opened fire on 4 Lebanon City police officers. Officers fired back, killing Shaud. He died at the scene. One injured officer radioed for help while the others worked to try to save Lieutenant Lebo's life. Sadly, we know that he did not survive. 2 other officers were also shot. Both are stable but under critical care right now.
We extend our thanks for the assistance of our county-wide Brothers in Blue for their mutual aid response. And we also thank the community for their outpouring of love and support at this time. We remain strong, and we are committed to serving and protecting our Lebanon community.
And Officer Ryan Adams and Officer Derek Underkoffler are those 2 officers who were injured, and we know right now the DA says they are both stable but under critical care. Reporting live in Lebanon, Taylor Toshef, ABC 27 News.
Taylor, the mayor that you just heard from and the DA also were part of that press conference that just wrapped up a couple hours ago. What was the mood like inside that room?
Yeah, inside the courthouse today, a very somber mood. The district attorney saying thoughts and prayers are with the injured and the fallen today. James.
Taylor Toshef live for us in Lebanon. Thank you very much for that report. Now, clearly this is a devastating time for the Lebanon Police Department. Losing any officer is hard enough, let alone one who'd been on the job for 40 years. Last night, Police Chief Todd Briner talked about how they're coping.
As one can only imagine, it's clearly a traumatic event. Our guys are strong, but we're human, and we have families, and people were injured today. We're all affected by this, and with the help of our families and every other law enforcement officer around this country, we'll get through it.
The Pennsylvania chapter of the Fraternal Order of Police says Lieutenant Lebo, quote, unselfishly served the community for 40 years, and our deepest condolences and prayers go to his family, friends, peers, and community. The statement goes on to say the FOP extends its prayers and unending support to Officers Adams and Underkoffler, saying these 3 men are heroes among us. Our hearts go out to the Lebanon City Police Department in the days and weeks to come as they begin to heal. Now, those 2 officers I just mentioned, they are still in the hospital in critical condition. Sonica Bargo continues our live team coverage with more on who those 2 officers who were injured, who they are, and how they're doing. Good afternoon, Sonica.
Good afternoon, James. Like you said, those officers are Ryan Adams and Derek Underkoffler. We learned each is 32 years old and has served with the Lebanon City Police Department for 7 years. Lieutenant William Lebo, who died yesterday, was 63 and had a 40-year career on the force. The Officer Down Memorial page tracks line-of-duty deaths of law enforcement officers across the country. It says Lebo is the first Lebanon City police officer killed in the line of duty in over a century, and only the 3rd in the department's history. This is not something the city or this area is used to experiencing, but DA Pierre Hess-Graff says everyone who was a part of the response to this incident is a hero.
They acted with utter bravery. The actions of every officer, every man and woman on scene, every medic deserves to be commended for the fearless actions they took yesterday.
I also reached out to Lebanon City Police Chief Todd Briner asking whether any memorials would be set up for Lieutenant Lebo, and I also asked if anyone in the police department would be able to speak about Lieutenant Lebo, and I'm still waiting to hear back on that. Live in Lebanon, Sonica Bargo, ABC 27 News.
Definitely a community there in mourning. Sonica, I was out there this morning and I could just see the emotions on people's faces as they walked into the police department. Have you been able to see something similar while you were out there today?
Yeah, James, I haven't talked to anybody here at the police department yet, but even just scrolling through social media, I've seen several posts offering thoughts and prayers to those injured officers and to the family of Lieutenant Lebo. Clearly, the community is definitely standing in solidarity with the police department and those officers. Absolutely.
Sonica Bargo live for us in Lebanon. Thank you so much for that. Now we are also learning more about the shooter. Seth Kaplan continues our live team coverage. He's in the ABC 27 newsroom to pick up the story from there. Seth.
Hey, James. Yeah, he's someone who is familiar to law enforcement, someone with a criminal record, a record of violence, although nothing that rose to a level that left him spending significant time in prison. Here's the shooter who, as Taylor told us, died during yesterday's exchange of gunfire. 34-year-old Travis Shaw had pleaded guilty twice in recent years to simple assault. In one case, he was sentenced to 2 years probation. He also had what officials describe as, quote, years-long mental health issues. As Taylor also mentioned, he did not live at the home on Forest Street where the break-in and then the shooting happened. Based on the most recent court records we could find, he lived somewhere nearby in the same zip code. And we're continuing to try and uncover more about Sean's past, and we'll bring it to you as soon as we get it. But James, for now, again, someone with a criminal record, but one that wouldn't necessarily portend yesterday's awful turn of events.
Absolutely. And Seth, police also mentioned something about his mental health.
They did. They said years-long mental health issues, and we know at first it was reported as a domestic disturbance. Now we got that clarity today that a break-in. These were family members, but this was not where he lived, and something we'll continue to learn more about. Again, in addition to those simple assaults, that's all we know right now is that those were what he was arrested for and pleaded guilty to. Again, in one case, being sentenced to those 2 years probation.
Seth Kaplan, live in the ABC 27 newsroom. Thank you so much for that. Now, reactions continue to pour in after the tragic events that unfolded in Lebanon yesterday afternoon. A short time ago, we got this statement from Governor Tom Wolf saying, in part, "My heart goes out to the families and colleagues of these officers. Thank you to Pennsylvania police officers for putting your lives on the line every day." On Twitter, Senator Bob Casey said his prayers are with the officers and their families. Casey says his office is in touch with local officials and is ready to offer support. Frank Ryan, who represents Lebanon in the State House, also sent us a statement saying, "My heart and prayers go out to our police officers and your families in this time of great sorrow. We will all be one with you in this tragic time." And we will have continuing team coverage throughout this newscast and all day long here on ABC 27 and ABC27.com, as well as the ABC 27 News app.